The other day, I found out that a friend of mine had died. And for the last couple of days, I've been clearly trying to digest it. You see, I have a number of friends. I've lived overseas in the days before Facebook and all that sort of stuff. So I have these really intense personal friendships for a very short amount of time. And you can lose kind of track of speaking to them all the time. But I'm the sort of person who has many friendships that I don't see people for a while, but when I see them, it's like no time has passed and everything is still the same. And we just pick up from where we left off. And that was the case with my friend that passed away. Now, I'm not going to name her. Um, this podcast is not about me or my grief. The family clearly is suffering far more than I am. But we don't really talk about the effect that mental illness has on grief and what grief has on mental illness. And that's what I want to explore a little bit today. So, mental illness and grief, like, share, and subscribe if you're up for it. And otherwise, let's dive in and see what happens. Welcome to Mark My Words. Mark My Words is the story of my journey from a place where I was shattered to where I could live again. Alrighty, so the other day I was sitting there watching TV and I got a message from an old friend, somebody that I hadn't spoken to in a number of years, letting me know that a friend of ours had passed away. They had died of brain cancer, which is kind of a new one for me. I haven't had anybody pass away around me for a natural cause for a number of years. So it kind of caught me by surprise. I um I'll give you some background. Years ago, I went to America, lived with a family, went to a college, and had just a wonderful time with a small group of Americans that became lifelong friends. I still think of them. I still reminisce about them, catch up with them on Facebook, see their posts on Insta, whatever. But I've always been the sort that when I show up over there, it's like we just pick up from where things went. And it might be years, but it's like no time has passed. And it's like, okay, we just, it's not like we have to sit there catching up. It's like we just get together and we just start enjoying each other the same way as we did years ago. Um, Jokes, fun, making fun of their accents. I mean, it's great to go to another country and make fun of their accents. It's a highly enjoyable activity. I remember once all my friends sat me down and they said, Mark, we want you to do an American accent. I said, oh, look, when I'm in America, I don't like to use my American accent because when I was an exchange student, when I was a kid, I actually picked up the accent in 1988, 87, 88. I went to Tulsa, Oklahoma and lived there for a year. And because I didn't speak to any Australians the whole time, I mean, phone calls were $1 million a piece. So you couldn't do that. There was no Facebook. There was no Insta. There was no video. It was just photos and letters. And I came back with a full on Okie accent. So ever since then, I've been nervous about picking up the American accent again. I've not wanted to do it, but I was sitting there with my friends and they said, hit us with your American accent. So I did. And they all just kind of stopped. And then I said, oh, I'll try a different American accent, and went kind of Southern Georgia. And then I did a Texas accent. And then I just went back to the Oregon accent, which is a very plain American accent. And they were just sitting there laughing. And they're like, Mark, it's your voice, but you sound normal. It just sounds so weird. So this is one of the jokes that we shared. So when I was sitting there and I got this phone call that my friend had died, I didn't even know she was sick. Apparently, she'd been fighting cancer for a year or so, a couple of years, apparently, and then went to the doctors about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I don't know the date, and they just said, "Look, you've got aggressive brain cancer. It's spread to your lymph nodes. You've got a matter of weeks." And apparently, 2 weeks later, she died. Now, this is a podcast about mental health, and again, I'm fine. I don't want people reaching out and going, Mark, that's not what this is. This is not a cry for help. This is a discussion of the impact that this has had on me. Now, there's a couple of things that have impacted me beyond this. First off, it was a friend from a long time ago, and it's somebody that I loved, somebody that I cared for deeply, and somebody that I was very much hoping to spend more time with. I know I'm in my 50s now, and I'm just starting to realize that, I thought I had all the time in the world to get back over to America to be with my friends more, and I'm realizing that that's not the case. It hasn't happened. Doesn't look like it will happen. Long story short, um, I have no one to talk to about this. I called one of my friends who's deep in grief, just a very short Facebook conversation. But I don't really have anybody that can understand what this means to me, how much this means to me. And my family, my kids have come to me and said, "Oh, Dad, you're not doing well." And it's like, "Oh, I'm just sad because my friend died." I don't know what to do with this feeling. And it feels like a heavy weight. It feels like I should be feeling more. It feels like I should, I don't know. And, but let's talk about what's happened in my mental health. So grief, what does grief cause? Sadness, depression, anxiety, all those things, and none of those things. Everybody goes through grief differently. For me, what do I have to watch out for? It's the depression, because um, around the time of my suicide attempt a few years ago, I haven't really spoken about it, but my grandfather, who I loved deeply and dearly, passed away around that time as well. And I don't talk about it because that's not one of the things that was going through my head at the suicide attempt. Like, oh, I miss my grandfather. There was none of that in the suicide attempt process. But there was a profound sense of grief, and all of my feelings were exaggerated. All of my feelings were blown out of perspective. So, what have I been able to do this time? My feelings want to blow out. My feelings want to blow out again. My depression, I can feel it. I'm feeling constricted, which is what my depression does. It's kind of a physical manifestation of being crushed. So what am I doing? I'm just doing body movements, just letting my body know that I'm not being compressed. I'm not being restricted. I'm breathing. I'm being mindful. I'm focusing on the fact that um, grief is not all I have in my life. I have a lot of good things. I have a wonderful wife. I've got great kids. I got things that I'm doing, things that I'm excited about. But still, this thing is lingering, and I, I'm, it's a process. I know that, but I'm just going to have to be on guard about how I'm feeling. Um, I desperately want to talk about it, but I don't know who to, because nobody can understand. It's like, oh, a friend that you had from 30 years ago and you haven't seen in 20 years, and you're still grieving for them. It doesn't make sense. But again, like I said, this is a person that I was hoping that there would be more time. I kept up on their life, what they were doing, where they were, just in case I could ever get back over there again and spend some time with them again. And this is something that's hard for me is I have a few of these friends, people that I haven't seen since 1988, but who are precious to me. People that showed me kindness, people that showed me care, people in 1993 when I was back there again, people that were just there for me when I needed them, kind, generous, lovely people that I shared my heart with. I haven't seen them. Well, those ones I have. I've seen again, but it's got to be 20 years since I've seen them. Since the birth of my daughter, 21 years ago. Was the last time I was over there. What am I going to do? I'm going to keep being mindful. I'm going to find ways to talk about my friend. It's hard to do that. It's hard for people to get their heads around how much this is hurting. And that's the thing about grief. We all go through it differently. And there is a danger for a person with mental illness. And I know that from firsthand experience. Do I have any advice for you out of this? No, I really don't. I'm not an expert on this. I'm not an expert on grief, but I'm telling you what I'm doing to get through this really devastating time. This, and it sounds weird that I'm even contemplating that my grief is special. It's not. Everybody has grief. Everybody goes through things. But I have to allow myself to go, you know what? This is a big deal for me. In a world perspective, it's a very small thing. This is my little thing is not earth shattering. It's not going to change the world. It's not going to do anything like that. But my friend died. I'm going to miss her. I feel super bad for her family and all her children. That's it. I'm going to leave it there. You need to know that I'm fine. I'm good. Mark my words is the lived experience of mental illness, and grief is a part of that lived experience. And I don't know if what I've talked about today will be helpful to anyone, but you need to know that you're not alone. There's somebody else going through it. Maybe not the same way exactly, but you aren't alone. Have a great week. I'll speak to you again soon. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to Mark My Words. I'd like to thank my producer, Meredith Brosnan, and also Torian, Kevin, and Lorraine. And I can't forget the band Adelaide, who allows us to use their song as our theme.